Welcome to Lesson 5, Fraction and Decimal Benchmarks. Benchmarks are fractions or decimals that most people know and are easy to use. Benchmarks help when working with more difficult fractions or decimals. So let's take a look at some standard benchmarks that most people are comfortable with. Just about everybody knows that halfway between 0 and 1 whole, you have 1/2. 1/2 is the most common benchmark to work with. Thirds are also a good benchmark. You can see here where 1/3 is and where 2/3 are. They can also help you with other fractions. And quarters are also good benchmarks to work with. So here you can see where 1/4 is, where 2/4 are, where 3/4 are. You could see these on your equivalent fraction chart as well. Pause for a moment and see if you can get the decimals that are equivalent to each of the fractions that you see here. So remember, you can get a decimal by treating a fraction as a division question. So it's always numerator divided by denominator, top number divided by the bottom number. So in this example, 1/2, on your calculator you would punch in 1 divided by 2. So go ahead and try that now. Come back when you have the decimals for all these fractions. So here are the equivalent decimals to the fractions on our benchmark fractions line. So we know that you see two decimals that are the same, and you know that 2/4 and 1/2 are equivalent, and so therefore they have the same decimal, 0.5 or 5/10 being the correct mathematical way to say it. So here's a list of different decimals, and if you were asked to put these on a number line between 0 and 1, it might be a little difficult to put them in the correct places if you did not have benchmarks to begin with. So that's our next job, is to see if we could figure out where on this number line we would put these decimals using those benchmarks above to help us. By the way, this is not meant to be confusing, but there are 3 number lines up here. All these benchmarks could be put onto one number line. They've just been separated onto 3 so that if they were all in one, the number line would get pretty cluttered. So that's the only reason for separating them. So pause the video and just see if you could figure out where these 5 decimals below would fit on these number lines. So which decimal do you think would fit here on this part of the number line? The only one that really makes sense, the only one that is less than 0.25 is 0.1. All the other ones are more than 0.25, so they would go to the right. How about this one over here? Well, you could see that this one is bigger than 0.25, but it's a little smaller than 0.33, and so the only one that would fit there is 0.3 or 3/10. How about this one over here, way far to the right, almost at 1? Well, the one that makes the most sense is 99/100. That would fit over there. We have 2 left. How about the one that is just over here? So that one is just a little bit under 0.5 or half. And here's one that's just under 0.5. Decimal 45, which is 45/100. And one left, the 8/10 would be just a little bit more here than 3/4 or 75/100. If this is a little confusing, let's see if I can explain it a little bit better. Think of these amounts as money. All these amounts are less than $1. Okay? So remember that we can always add a 0 after a decimal number and it doesn't change its value. So first we had 0.1, which is 1/10, and now I've changed it to 0.10, which is 10/100ths. Whether you have 10/100ths or 1/10, both of these two amounts are equivalent. They mean the same amount. If you took a pizza, cut it up into 10 equal parts and had one slice, or took a pizza, cut it up into 100 equal parts and had 10 of those slices, you would have the exact same amount. Or if you think of them as scores on a test, 1 out of 10 is 10%. 10 out of 100 is 10%. It's the same amount. So when I add zeros to the end, like here I can make this 30/100ths, this one I can make 50/100ths, and this one I can make 80/100ths. I have not changed their value. They are still the same. So now if we look at them as amounts of money, it becomes really simple. Here I have 10 cents. Halfway between 0 and $1, I have 50 cents. 45 cents is just a little bit less than 50 cents. That's why it's here. Here I have 25 cents, so 30 cents is a bit more than that. Over here, almost at $1, I have 99 cents, so 1 penny short of $1. And here, a bit more than 75 cents, I have 80 cents. So hopefully looking at these decimal amounts as money, as cents, makes a little bit more sense for you. In this lesson, you learned that benchmarks are fractions or decimals that most people know and find easy to use, and that benchmarks can be used to help you when you're working with more difficult fractions. So in this number line here, all the benchmarks that we talked about that you saw on separate number lines have been all put together onto one number line. And that helped us then to put more difficult decimals to place on a number line, on the number line once the benchmarks were there to help us out. And we learned that if we think of the decimals as money values, like 10 cents, 30 cents, 45 cents, 80 cents, 90 cents, that it makes it easier to understand where they fit and how the benchmarks are there to guide you in placing those decimal points. So have fun working with fractions and decimal benchmarks. Watch the video again and ask your teacher if you need any help.